Have a great show, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Lang. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Lang.
Welcome to Finding Certainty. If this is your first time, we welcome your patronage and hope you have a good time with us today. I'm very excited about my guest today, Miss Ninon de Vere De Rosa. Ninon, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I love how you pronounce my name absolutely correctly. And that could be quite unusual.
Is that right?
No.
Well, it's one of the first things I noticed about you when I was referred to you by our mutual friend, John Gruitt. I said, what an amazing name. I wish my name was that cool.
And you know, it's all real. That's the funny part about it. My mother gave me Ninon from Ninon de L'Encleur. She was reading that book and she decided to call me Ninon. De Vere is my family name through my father that goes back to the 1600s.
Mm-hmm.
And De Rosa was my married name. So there's nothing phony about my name at all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It's cool, actually, but I have to pronounce it several times before people say, what?
Well, it's unique. You know, it's longer than most names, but I think it's a really great example of who you are because I think it's very classy. It's a little exotic, you know, it's unique. And as I've gotten to know you better and better, I think those terms describe you to a T.
Oh, that's wonderful. We've only known each other business-wise for about a month, right? Or 6 weeks.
Yeah, it hasn't been very long, but it feels like much longer than that.
It feels like years. I feel like I've known you for years and we've been doing business for years and it's great. It's wonderful. Thank you, Patrick.
I'm really enjoying it. So I have to tell everybody, if you're listening, that every time I start one of my shows, I always share a couple of reasons why I've invited this specific guest to join us. And with Ninon, it was a little bit difficult because there's so many reasons. And as I went through her bio that she sent me, I mean, it's multiple pages long, and she's just an extraordinary woman, as you'll get to know here during this show today. But just to kind of introduce you, if I may, Ninon is a well-known TV personality. She's done documentaries. She's been a producer. She did a show called Voices of Tomorrow that we're going to be talking about today that focused on interviewing teens. And I think I know just from our conversation, it's one of the things you've done in your life that you're most proud of. And you felt like really was an important work. Isn't that right, Ninon?
It's very important to me. And funny you bring this up because I started it purely because I left home at 16. I didn't go to school. And I left with $5, which was equivalent to £3 at that time.
Right.
And it was a very daring thing to go into. But for me, it wasn't daring at all. It was like quite natural to go and do that. And so the reason I did Voices of Tomorrow is I wanted to let the younger generation know it didn't matter who they were, what they were, whether they were educated or not. It didn't matter, that there was a place for them in this world. And any teenager, even today, any teenager does have that opportunity of being young, doing all the daring things because you don't think they're daring at the time. You just do them and you move on, and you can succeed from nothing. You can make something of yourself. And I just wanted all the teens out there to actually know that because it's possible. Everything's possible. We're all the same. We're all the same bodies, except there's female or male, whichever. And so, you know, I'm not going to say it's easy. A lot of hard work.
Absolutely. I love that sentiment, though. You know, we have infinite potential in us, divine potential, right?
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about your show a little bit later in the episode, because it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about as well, about helping the next generation become who they can be and achieve their potential. And we have a program in our company called the Certainty Fellowship. So I'll share a little bit about that as well. But continuing the reasons why I invited Ninon on. If I had to pick two, and she's a philanthropist, she's an entrepreneur, she's been a commercial real estate investor for many, many years. And yet you started with these really humble beginnings. And I think if I had to pick two reasons, one is that Ninon, as well as anyone I've ever met, has the ability to inspire the people she meets. And when you walk in a room, all eyes turn on her. They want to know, wow, Ninon's here. They gravitate to her and they want to come be around her and learn from her and hear from her. And so that's led into her career of interviewing not just the teens, but she has a show called NinonSpeaks. It's the number one show in Las Vegas, Vegas Live with Ninon. And I know, and I want to talk a little bit about that because obviously I'm an interviewer as well, and I'm already learning so much from you, about how to do a better job. But the second piece is, besides the fact that she is so, I guess, charismatic and inspiring, is Ninon has a real heart for giving back. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the philanthropic work you've done as well, because that's not always the case. You have people that are leaders and they're in entertainment or politics or whatever, but do they truly care about the people they serve? And I think you're a perfect combination of those two, if I may say so.
Well, I don't think you have to be any particular person to help or serve somebody else. I think it's something probably that comes from within. I've always wanted to help people, and I have no reason why. I don't know why this happens, but it's an automatic thing. If I see somebody in a difficult situation, I will rush and help them or do what I can do for them. But it's not a put on thing. It's just a kind of, it's just within. It's just something within. I just wish more people were like that in this day and age. I've been pushed and shoved in many supermarkets and many places, and regretfully from them, I haven't had a sorry. And I'm like, oh, aren't you sorry you did that? It's like the people are very, they don't seem to understand, or maybe they just don't understand life. I don't know. But they don't seem to understand that, you can say sorry and put a smile on your face, and it's okay because it doesn't cost anything. Everybody's in this cost thing. Everything is money, 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 money. Right. And life is not about money. It's you work first and then the money comes. That's really how, any job you go into, you don't get paid until the end of the month. So I guess that's the reason why you have to do the job first and then you get paid. But I think giving back, and I've never felt about giving back. I've felt about just giving. Everybody's done so much for me. And yes, you're right. I walk into a room, I walk somewhere, Ninon, how are you? And Ninon, it's good to see you. And Ninon, I know you, but you don't know me. And I say, okay, so how don't I know you? Because I really don't know them. I'm like, who is this? And I'm getting all embarrassed because I'm not acknowledging them. So, and they said, oh, we're friends on Facebook. And I look at them, I said, and 10,000 others. And it's like, but they're so sweet. People are so nice to me and so good to me that I'm very fortunate, I think, to have so many friends and so many people that acknowledge me. I'm quite sure I have a few people out there that don't agree with a lot of what I say and do, and that's fine. We can't all get along, I guess.
Well, you talk about how the teens that you've interviewed for, it was 16, 17 years, right?
Yes.
Just the potential that they have within them and helping them understand that potential. And I think that sentiment embodies so much of your life, and what you've accomplished is just this abundance mindset. It's not a scarcity mindset. You're right. So many people are focused on money and getting ahead, even stepping on others to get there.
Yes.
So it's unique to have someone who doesn't do that. I know you deal with some criticism maybe, or some jealousy, or some of the other things from others out there. I think anyone who's accomplished a lot in their life does, but you don't seem to have, I don't think you deserve that, in my opinion. And you certainly haven't actively, I don't think created it or engendered it. It's just
No.
par for the course. It just happens. And
Well, it
I've
also
seen
might
you as a very generous person in just in our short relationship.
it also might be kind of learning. Sometimes people think that I know everything. Well, I don't know everything. And I'm like everybody else. I don't do it perfectly the first time. Maybe the second time when someone said something, I think, oh, let's pay attention and let's make sure I do it the right way this time. But I think from the day we're born till the day we part, from the first breath, I always say from the first breath to the last breath, I truly believe we are learning every single minute and time and second of every day. I don't think there's any time in our life that we don't learn. I'm still learning. I'm still doing things I've never done before. I enjoy them. I don't think it's ever too late. I'm quite an elderly lady, and I don't think it's ever too late to learn or to be active. And just because you're old, you can't do it, or just because, oh, I can't do this and I can't. I disagree with all that totally. I think there's always room to do something, though it would be different from what I do at an older age than what I would have done at a younger age, but it's still doing something. It's still, every 5 years we kind of change, and that's in marriage. I was married for 30 years, 29 years. And every kind of 5 years or so, every few years, we would change without even noticing it. Well, I noticed it, and I noticed the different things I would do and the different things he would do and the different way we act towards marriage and everything else. Still having that love and still having that understanding and that respect for each other. And I think respect is probably one of the greatest things you can have for anybody, and definitely to have for our teenagers. Let's not keep putting them down, because this is what I'm hearing all the time. Oh, they don't understand. Oh, they're stupid. Oh, they never learn. I think we've got more teenagers right now that have come ahead in life, and that's through technology, than we've ever had. You've got teenagers that are millionaires because they thought of an idea and went through with it. And like Shark Tank, you see some of these young kids come on, and the parents have come with them and helped them, without interrupting them. And I think that's remarkable. And they brought this idea, whatever it is. There was a young guy, I think he started making bow ties. And he's now in Nordstrom's, he's everywhere. And you look at, I look at it anyway, and I think it's amazing that our younger generation are so great right now. So everybody out there, please don't put them down, because they are learning and we are teaching them, hopefully.
100%. I have 5 children, as you know, 3 boys, 2 girls, and we all want the next generation to be better than we are. And I just am blown away by how talented they are and intelligent they are. And they're each different. We have very different personalities with all 5 children. They range 17 to 25 now, but as we talk about what our children learn from us and what they become, and much of it is based on what we tell them. Just as you said, I think too many people assume the worst. They tell them they're lazy, they tell them they're stupid, they tell them they're unfocused or whatever. And I think the same thing happens with celebrities, with influencers like yourself. People assume the worst about someone, and it's not right. It's not fair, because more often than not, it's wrong. It's incorrect. So, I think we should just slow down a little bit, reserve our opinion, and get to know them a little bit first. Listen, maybe ask some questions.
That's my greatest thing.
Assumptions, right?
Yeah, one of my greatest saying is just listen. That's one of them. Just listen, which means for your children, because I did that for the children. And the other one is nothing happens without you. Nothing. I can't be on this show without you, Patrick. I can't be on this show with you, and I can't be on this show without the technician behind me. We don't see his face, we don't see him, but we thank him. Thank him. I don't know what his name is, but anyway.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. But without all these people, nothing happens. So we do need other people to keep us going, to keep us along. But I think one thing that parents and people should probably try to understand, because I don't think we do, is there's going to be average 20 years between your child and you, and that never changes. So when the child is 15, it's got all these ideas, which we say all these crazy ideas, which aren't so crazy. It's their ideas, but they're 20 years ahead of us. And we always relate to what we did at their age. Well, we can't do that, because 20 years ago, there was nothing like what it is today. So I think parents should understand a little bit, but also parents and whomever teaching the children, whoever is in charge of all these younger generations, which I was partly, I think we have to understand and teach. We are the teachers. And if we don't teach our younger generation of today's life, not 20 years ago, we can compare, yes. But I think we need to do that a little bit more, be a little bit more patient with them, try to understand the technology, because some parents are 30 and 40 years older than their kids. So that's a big chunk of age.
Big generational gap for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
I know your childhood was fairly challenging, difficult. You left at 16 years old, $5 in your pocket. And yet you very quickly, we're coming up on our first break here, but maybe in 60 seconds, how did you successfully make the leap from essentially homeless at 16 to a successful model? You were a synchronized swimming performer. You became an entrepreneur at a young age. How did you make that leap? And again, I
made that leap by when I left home, I got a one-room apartment. It was like the smallest room I've ever seen in my life, but it was the least expensive. So I always thought that the less you can spend if you're trying to save is the challenge. So I worked 20 hours a day for a whole year to save. And how much money can you make at 16 is not very good.
Much.
But I worked really, really hard. And I saved enough money. Actually, I saved £100. So from £5 to £100 in 1 year, as living on my own and doing my own thing and paying my own rent and everything else. That was my challenge. But I knew that if I didn't make this money and if I didn't move out of where I was living in Torquay at the time, and I wanted to move to London. So I gained all this. I even got a ride from a friend of mine to London so that I could save the fare going there. This is how my mind thought. Of wherever I could save money, I saved money. And that was a bit of a challenge. But I got to my grandmother's, and then my grandmother, I'd never had a break from anybody. My grandmother charged me rent. I remember she charged me, I think it was £3 or £4, £3.50 a week.
Wow.
It was a chunk out of my money, monthly. That was 12, 13, 14 pounds, which in those days was a lot of money from a young lady. At that time, I was 17. That was a challenge to save anything. I will break now because I know you have a break.
When we come back from the break, let's talk about how you transitioned from there to today. And I know you've been through a lot. You've won over 100 awards, been awarded all kinds of accolades. And your story is really quite extraordinary, but it had such humble beginnings.
Yes, it still is humble.
Work and savings and just stick-to-itiveness and persistence and determination, all those things added up, and they are very much a part of who you are. But we're visiting with Ninon de Vere De Rosa, a new friend of mine, widely recognized, especially here in Las Vegas, as an influencer and a TV personality. And we'll be right back. We're just going to go to a quick break, and don't go anywhere. We'll continue with Ninon.
Thank you.
All clear. Great segment. Back in 2.
All right. The YouTube channel keeps recording, so if we want to talk about anything specific during the break, we can. It's about 2 minutes, or give or take. So I think it's really interesting that you just did what you had to do. I think so often people have challenges in life and they're passive. They wait for something good to happen. It's like you were saying about teaching kids and them learning and gaining self-confidence and skills and so forth. It doesn't happen when we just sit and wait. We have to proactively get off our hind ends and go to work, right?
Well, yeah, you kind of have to do it. If you don't do it, you can still sit there it's like, as I said, I'm older, and there's no reason for me to sit. What am I sitting for, and what am I waiting for, to die? I might live longer than I think I'm going to live. I don't know.
Right.
No, but
outlive their savings because they they'd last as long as they did, right?
I'm going to say one thing to all our audience out there. You know, the greatest thing you can probably have, and it's probably been very difficult in the last 3 or 4 years, and that most people had, is to have financial money behind you, to make sure you've got that little pocket of money, and don't go out when things are a little tough and a little rough. Don't go, oh, I'm going to spend because I'm depressed, or because that's the worst thing you could probably ever do, because that'll make you even more depressed, because then you have less money. The greatest thing to have, and that's what I did at the very beginning of my life, I made sure I had that money, so that I moved to London. Now, £35 of that money went to go and have photographs taken to get into the modeling business. I knew that I could not get into the modeling business unless I had professional photographs. Now, how do you know?
All right, we are coming back.
How do you know at 16 years old?
You are listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Lang. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. We're visiting with Ninon de Vere De Rosa. And prior to the break and during the break, we were talking a little bit more about her experience. And I think so many people are fascinated by how a celebrity got their start. How did an influencer go from nobody, and nobody's a nobody, but you know what I mean? Nobody knew who they are, to everywhere they go, people know their name. And you were telling me, Ninon, how you saved up £100.
Yeah.
You moved to London. Your grandmother even charged you rent,
Yes.
about $350 a week. So that was a big chunk out of your £100. But then you took £35 and went and invested in professional photos.
Correct.
Right? Because you wanted to get into modeling and acting or something along those lines, correct? You want to tell a little bit more about that story?
Yeah, and I couldn't do it unless I have photographs. I can't walk into someone's agency and say, here I am, and walk out and them to remember me. They probably would have done because of the personality, but I had to leave them with photographs. So I remember my auntie Yvonne, she said, Ninon, you can't spend all that money. That's nearly half the money gone. And I said, but auntie, I said, if I don't do this, I'll never know. I'll never know of getting into. So in life, you've got to take some chances, but take some chances that are going to benefit your life of something you want to do and something where you want to go. Because sometimes you've got to lay out money or time or whatever to get somewhere where you want to be. And you've got to do that. That's an absolute must. It might not be the worst. I think my grandfather walked from Scotland to London, in London, and he walked the whole way. It's a long way, but he did it because he watched a game and he ended up owning shopping, not centers. We had shopping strips at that time, but he did very well. And not that I came from a very wealthy family. I came from a very talented family. I came from a very knowledgeable family. Not that we had too much money, but that didn't really matter. That wasn't part of life. But it's the choices you make at a young age, and that's why I say take care of our younger generation, because it's a choice you make at your own young age that really goes through the rest of your life, because you've made a choice of something you think you like to do, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. It's nobody else's business. It's what you like to do. And I think that's what I did.
Sounds like the drive that your grandfather showed is something that he passed on to you, genetically at least, because
genetically, yes,
you did not get to where you are today without that drive and determination, as I said earlier. So as you transitioned, I know you became a successful model. You eventually moved to the States. You got married. You had the love of your life for 29 years. And you've had this, you refer to it as a charmed life, as a blessed life.
Yeah.
As you look back, were there hurdles? Were there challenges or setbacks that you had to overcome to get to where you are? It wasn't all easy going, I know. But what was a challenge or two that you had to
The
overcome?
challenge was testing life. I lived in Jersey C1 for a time and practically got killed there through a gentleman that was harassing my girlfriend and I, and he tried to get into our apartment, and we barricaded ourselves in. So that's one of the things. I had challenges. I lived in Beirut for a couple of years when I had my underwater swimming act, and it was a singular underwater. It wasn't synchronized swimming. It was a singular.
Oh, really?
Act. Yes, it was in a like a fishbowl, which was 4.5 feet by 4.5 feet. Well, I'm 5'6", so I was hanging out of it. But so I had to sort of revolve my body around this, and how I got that job and how I did it was I turned up as a model. I had all the hair going and the clothes and the whole bit. And all the others looked like swimmers. They were all dressed like in casual clothes and no makeup, and I've got full makeup on and everything. Not really realizing what I'm actually up to, to be honest. And but I had this bikini, and I had a little slender body then. I weighed 117 pounds at 5'6", so I was quite slender. And I remember I said, "Oh, I'll go last." There was a reason. So everything I did in life actually was a reason. I would always offer to go last. And why would I go last? Because I wanted to see what everybody else did first.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I saw what they did, so then I dive into this water, into this swimming pool. I dive in, and I know that he was watching underneath through the glass. So I dived in, and I remember putting my arms straight out, and I turned and I smiled because I knew that's where he was. Now, don't forget, I'm only like, I'm 21 at this time. No, 22, I think, or something, whatever. It's very young. Anyway, and that attracted him. But when I came out of the swimming pool and I came out to see him, I was all dressed up again. So I had all the makeup still on because I got underwater makeup. And then I got a hairpiece that I put on. So, and I came out like a total model because that's what I was used to. And he looked at me and went, "Oh, Charlie Henches was his name, Russian."
Interesting. You know, it's funny because so often big things happen in our lives when we go the extra mile, when we just do that little extra bit. It doesn't always have to be something gargantuan or monumental, right? I have a t-shirt that says the extra mile is rarely crowded, right? And
really,
and you did that. You took that approach and it made you stand out. You were probably as prettier as any of the other women. You were probably, I mean, maybe they were better swimmers, whatever it is, but you did something different to differentiate yourself. As we talk about teens and we talk about your career, and I look at everything from a business standpoint because we're a business consulting firm. I find that most businesses that are succeeding are doing something different. They're standing out from their competition, just as you have stood out in your career. And it doesn't always go perfectly, right? There's always challenges. I mean, especially when you're in a startup. I mean, we were going to meet last week, and Zoom ended up crashing on us. It didn't
want me on.
Cooperate, right? It wasn't your fault, it wasn't my fault, but it just did not work. And yet, to truly succeed in business or in life, you have to take those hiccups and those speed bumps with a grain of salt, right?
Absolutely.
Or like water off a duck's back, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree? Do you think that's an important?
I think that's actually perfect. But like you and I, what we didn't let that stop us from having a show. So we're here this week. So It's the tenacity of keep moving forward. I think a lot of people feel embarrassed about certain things that happened. I've been one of these people. I'm not embarrassed about anything that happens because it happens. And it happens for a reason. And maybe I wasn't supposed to be on last week. I'm supposed to be on this week. I don't know, but I'm very grateful to be on this week. I'm very happy that we're still doing what we're doing. But don't let those things, and that's what let people, "Oh, I can't do it," and "Oh, they always have all these excuses. I don't want our teenagers to have those. They're going to get those all the time. They're going to get those more than us. But they've got to take the challenge on because that'll keep them on the path they want to go to. So
I couldn't agree
that down.
Couldn't agree more, Ninon. As it turned out, I was able to do a monologue that I've never had a chance to do that. I've always had a guest, and I ended up having to speak for the whole hour.
You were great, by the way. I was listening to you. I listened to it. You were great.
I appreciate that. And I feel like it was given to me. I mean, it flowed out of me. And I've had several people reach out to me and tell me how much that message meant to them. If you're listening, I encourage you to go back and listen. Last week, I talked about 3 secrets or 3 steps to finding, that is, creating more certainty in your life. And I've gotten several compliments on what it was, but I think it's an important principle, because I think one of the most important things we can do to be successful in business, in life, in relationships, is to be able to pivot quickly, be able to, move quickly off the cuff. That's how I got this show, right? They invited me to be a host because they said, you're quick off the cuff. You seem like you wouldn't.
You've got to be quick. You've got to be quick. You have to be.
You wouldn't ever freeze up in front of the lights, and so far I haven't, but.
You won't do that. You've got you know why? Because you've got the confidence, because you know what you're talking about. And one of the greatest things is to have the knowledge. And people say to me, Ninon, why are you so quick at answering people? Why are you so quick at a question? Why? Because I have the knowledge. I don't watch sitcoms. I don't watch a lot of stuff, but I do watch a lot of intellectual stuff. And people say, why are you watching that? And I said, well, what happens if I have a guest and they suddenly ask me about this question and I can't answer it? So I better be prepared. So that's what I think. I think you've got to be, whatever you do, I don't even care if you're a cleaner somewhere, make sure you know how to clean a house. I mean, you can't have a house unless you know how to clean it.
Right.
I don't care how much money you've got. You can't hire a maid unless you know how to keep a house clean, because you've got to tell the maid what to do.
Right. Well, it goes back to your point of not only continual learning, but continual progress. You're talking to kids about their potential and how they have so much ahead of them, so much opportunity and so much potential. I mean, last week in my monologue, I talked about how one of the key principles in finding certainty is believing that it's out there, right? Having faith and having hope in the future, and then assessing your current reality and opening your eyes to the resources available to you. There's a lot of people out there that are in a small town maybe, or an inner city, or they don't have a great family upbringing.
Doesn't matter.
I feel like they're limited, but there is.
That doesn't matter. They're not limited.
They're not. They're
No.
much less limited than they think they are. Sure, they may have limitations, but there's so much potential, abundance, and opportunity if you just look up and realize it.
I think they put you put things on yourself that are not there. So you put a limitation on yourself by saying, oh, I can't do that. Now, what makes you think you can't do that? Even if you can't do it, why don't you try and make it a positive and then learn how to do it? Then you can do it.
Well, it's like they say, they talk about failing forward, right? Even if you fail, make sure you fall forward, not backward. Right?
Well, I've failed a lot of things. I have to say one thing, I was married 29 years and I was the 3rd wife. And a lot of people say, oh, Ninon, you could do better and you could do this and you could do that. They never really said before they said that, whether I love the guy or whether I had the greatest marriage. This guy maybe it wasn't for the other 2. But for me and our marriage, I had the best marriage I could ever have asked for, the best. I don't have children, but that's between him and I. That was a bit of a problem. But we weren't able to have children, which is okay. Maybe I wasn't supposed to have children. I don't know. And that's maybe why I did the children's show, because I didn't have any children. So I gave my heart to that show for 16 years. It's like having children of my own. Exactly.
I think you have hundreds of children out there.
Thousands of them.
Look to you and as a surrogate mom, it's like my wife is a stepmother to my children. I was married before and we ended up divorcing, and then I remarried, and we refer to Tesha, my wife, as the bonus mom. I call her super bonus mom.
There you go.
That's how I see you to all these kids that you interviewed and that you, I'm sure, helped them.
Well, I look at children in a completely different way than of a mother, obviously. And so therefore, I've kind of got a different outlook on them. I don't see anything. I don't think any child does anything bad. I think they need to be corrected in a lot of stuff because they're children. They're young.
Learning.
They don't know. They're learning. Absolutely. And my greatest thing was just listen, because a lot of parents when a child comes home, is all excited, like the 7, 8-year-old, all excited. Hey, Mom, I got this, and starts telling a story. Then the mother takes over and tells her story of the same thing, and the child just sits there looking. And that's where the phrase came up. Just listen. Don't interrupt them. Let them have that excite them, even if they're not talking. That they stutter. They don't know how to. They're all excited, and you have got the patience. You've got to have the patience because they are your children. Take care.
Well, they are. And you talk about how we achieve our potential, whether it's in business or with our kids we're mentoring or raising or whatever. One of my favorite books is a book called The Oz Principle. And it's the story of Dorothy, the lion, the scarecrow, and the Tin Man traveling to the Emerald City, right? Traveling down the yellow brick road. And you've got to read it, but it's a phenomenal book because it teaches that they were going to the city and they were expecting the wizard, the great and powerful Oz, who just turned out to be a shyster anyway, but they were going there to have him fix their problems for them. But as we learn throughout the story, and I'd never realized this, it's this classic tale, right?
Yeah.
They realized that they had it within them to do it.
Yes.
They did. And you see it illustrated many times. The lion showed courage. The scarecrow figured out the problems. The Tin Man obviously had a heart. He rusted himself. He was so emotional. And Dorothy was wearing the red slippers the entire story that could take her home.
Yeah.
Isn't that a powerful?
And I think if you go by that, how the strength and how the positivity is in that is amazing. It's
that infinite potential that we're talking about.
And it's like I went into real estate because of my husband. I was in real estate since 1970. Well, I met my husband in 75, so I started real estate with him probably in about 1980. I'm going back in years, but that's okay. Yeah. And I learned real estate, but I learned to keep my mouth shut. And so when we were in a deal, he would be talking a lot, and I'd maybe say something, because I wasn't just sitting there as a dummy. I still wanted to be a person.
Sure.
But I let him, it was the deal. And then after we got in the car, because when I met my husband, he had no money because his wife divorced him and took all his money and blah, 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 blah. I think I had more money than him, and I had no money. But anyway, and when we got in the car, he would ask me all these questions, and I never knew why. And suddenly I realized that he realized where my brain was at and what I was listening, and I was saying in a different perspective as of what he was saying. And we made deals, big deals. We were in commercial real estate. When we started in Northridge, a little tiny home, and we ended up in Bel Air and also Mulholland. We did extremely well together.
Right.
And that was because we worked together. We held hands for 29 years. We had the greatest love affair, probably, that nobody really knew about because everybody kept saying, "Oh, Ninon, you can do better." And I'm thinking, I don't think so. But anyway, that was their opinion.
I love that.
Yeah, it was fabulous. But I helped him and he helped me. So it was a two-way street, and that's how it kind of worked. And we had a normal life of having rows and arguments. Everybody does. We have disagreement. But I think it's just, how we helped each other and how I learned real estate, and I'm still in real estate.
Well, it's an interesting comment. We are up against our next and last break, but when we come back, I want to continue that topic just briefly. It's actually the third principle I shared last week on my monologue was about how we have to work together. We need to rely on each other. We can be independent, we can be proactive, and but we're so much stronger when we work together. So we're going to go to break. We're visiting with Ninon de Vere. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
All clear. Great segment. Back in 2.
Thank you.
That's funny, Patrick, because that's where my saying comes in. Nothing happens without you.
Yeah.
And that is the saying. That's because we can't do anything in this world. Nothing, absolutely nothing in this world without somebody else, because somebody has to take care of our electricity. Somebody has to take care of whatever our life is. We might be alone in our house, but we are not alone. Well, number one, we have God up there anyway. So we're never alone. He's always, helping us out. He's helped me out without me even realizing it. I never knew God was on my side for so many years, but Maybe that's because I didn't lie and I didn't cheat and I knew the right way to do something. I don't know, because that was just who I was, you know? It's just, that's just how it's not, we are who we are. You are who you are. You didn't realize that maybe I shouldn't have been on the show last week to be able to carry a show off by yourself. And you did it. You've never done it before. And you thought, well, hang on a second, I can do it. How cool is that?
It was a lot of fun, actually. And I mean, I've done hundreds, maybe thousands of sales meetings and other things where I do most of the talking, and so I'm pretty good off the cuff. But I do believe last week was supposed to happen. It was a message that someone out there needed to hear, and I've heard from a handful of people who said it was very
20
timely.
seconds.
Thank you. Anyway, we're coming back.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Lang. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. We're grateful to have you with us today. Whether you're a new guest who's maybe come across us for the first time, or one of our faithful listeners, visiting with Ninon de Vere De Rosa. She's a renowned TV producer, personality, a documentarian, et cetera, et cetera. We've talked a little bit about what you did with Voices of Tomorrow for 16, almost 17 years, interviewing teens. Mm-hmm. And I know you've done a lot of other work with youth and with, tell us just briefly, if you can, a little bit about your work in Kenya, some of the other philanthropic work.
Oh, yes. I went to Kenya and did a documentary, and it was amazing. Oh, my goodness. I went there. I was only there for about 5 days filming, and we were in this Kakamega little town, and everybody was so grateful and so wonderful. And we did this documentary on the children. They were all orphans. Their parents had died of different diseases or just old age or whatever the case was. And we kind of brought them to the forefront and also brought the teachers to the forefront. But they had this beautiful sort of place where the children, they didn't live there, although we, through my foundation, which was called KidsTalk Foundation, we actually bought a whole stretch of, I think it was like 10 rooms or something. And 4 of the rooms were for teaching, and the others were for all the babies. And we had all the baby cots in there. So the babies from parents that had died of AIDS or whatever the case was, what they ever died of. And so we had a place to put them because they were orphans. And then we had a place for teaching. And then I started helping them and helping them on their road of what they can do as orphans. And it was, I actually interviewed an AIDS young lady. She was probably about 36. She had AIDS. And everybody said to me, they said, well, Ninon, you're a little close to the AIDS. And I said, well, she's going to give it to me. And so I was never worried about any of that, even, any country I'd lived in. I lived in Jamaica. I lived in Beirut. I lived all over little parts of the world. But I've never been afraid of catching something from somebody else because I just don't believe in that. So I sat next to her and we interviewed her. And it was very touching just to listen to somebody of their life being destroyed and sort of slowly she was leaving this world. But I learned a lot from there. We went to 3 different camps and we opened a school. We actually built a school in another part. Can't remember the name of the place. And we built the school and we had the opening of it and we had the children singing when I arrived. We had this whole group of children. They started singing when I arrived. It was just so amazing how we were respected there and how we were honored there. I actually still have the tape, which maybe we should play one day. And that was absolutely amazing. It was an eye-opener of another part of the world and how they live and how all these people took care of these children. These children would come to the camp at 6 o'clock and they would leave 6 or 7 at night. And where they went to sleep, that was all taken care of because they didn't have a home. None of these kids had homes, but they were taken care of. So it was an eye-opener.
Well, as we talk about helping our youth, helping the next generation achieve their potential. One of it is how we speak to them and how we talk to them and talk about them, and the ideas and the beliefs that we help instill in them. And it's so important. It's so important to help them get ahead and help them believe in who they are. We have a program at our company, Certainty Management, that we call the Certainty Fellowship, and it's designed to help any college kid who either wants to go to school or is in school and is struggling through taking on student debt and so forth to try to get a degree, and they're worried about if they're going to get a job and they're worried about that debt load. The Certainty Fellowship exists to help them graduate 100% debt-free with skills and access and connections, but also zero student debt. And I'm very passionate about it. It's a new program for our company, but we're very excited about it because it's just giving those kids that hand up that they need to.
And they do. They need a hand up. And
not everybody's as strong as you, Ninon, to get up at 16 and still make it. I mean, most people.
I'm not finished yet.
Need help, right? I mean, they need our help. They need our support. They need our encouragements. That's why we're.
They do. And it's funny we talk about the younger generation, because then I started my show, Vegas Live with Ninon, which I did for 7 years, nearly 8 years in Vegas. And I actually interviewed a lot of the entertainers. And it's funny because you think about Vegas, all the entertainers I had, they all got jobs. Well, they don't all have jobs. They all have a second job to keep their career going. And that was a great example. And I'd like to give a shout out to Action Shot Productions, Steve Sebo, who is my producer right now. He's stood by my side for many, many years, or probably about 10 or 12 years now. And he's really been wonderful. Now we're doing our other show, which is called NinonSpeaks, which is I'm having people on that have got a story. And it's funny, I just invited a young lady. Her name is Jules Bailey. Jules Bailey does a kind of a fellowship, like a Bible study, every other Tuesday at her house, and she's got an exotic home. So I said to her the other day, I said, I've got to have you on my show. And this woman is really out there. I mean, she's amazing. And she writes back to me, she says, I don't have a story. And I'm thinking, if you don't have a story, then nobody in this world has a story. She has
Absolutely.
A story. She has an incredible story. So now I'm interviewing people on NinonSpeaks that have a story, and I love it. And then I had another lady that wanted to come on, asked me to come on, and I said, well, do you have a story? And she said, no. So then I said, well, I can't have you on. So then 2 weeks later, she said, I have a story. And I said, oh, great, what's the story? She said, well, I've just made up a story. The point I'm getting at, it's amazing how people think of themselves and what they do. Everybody is totally different.
Well, and isn't it our stories that make us who we are? I mean, you introduced me to Jules, and you're right.
It's amazing.
She's been an entrepreneur, owned her own business for 62 years.
Yeah.
She's a costume designer for high-end artists and performers. I just spoke with her last night, and she was working on a $40,000 jacket for entertainment.
Who has a $40,000?
Right? A country music star or something with Swarovski crystals on it and everything.
Yeah.
But that's a nice shout out for you.
But she's amazing. But that's the different people in this world. But like that, the entertainment people in Las Vegas, they're not all. They're all beautiful singers. They've all got beautiful acts. They've all got something going for themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the business. Right. But there's not enough room here to put them all in and to put them out. So I had this show where I would give them a presentation for about 15, 20 minutes. And to get them out there and put their email out there and their phone number for people to get in touch with them. A lot of people got a lot of work through that show, I hope. But a lot of people told me they did. So, that's helping other people.
Yeah, it goes back to, paying it forward and making a difference in the lives that we can. Whether we're talking about our children, whether we're talking about entrepreneurs or entertainers, we all kind of go through this process of, I call it a progression, if you will, from the lowest level, I think, is fear, uncertainty, right? Just the opposite of what we seek for on this show, but uncertainty and fear. And then we go to this next level where we start to maybe hope that things can happen, and there's a glimmer of hope, and we move from there to faith. And belief and knowledge and certain knowledge, and we end up uncertainty on the other end. And we all go through that.
Yes, we do.
Whether we're talking about entertainers looking for an additional side business or a way to support their passion, or true blue entrepreneurs, or that's what they're doing, kids who are looking for what they're going to do with their lives. I mean, you and I have just decided to go into partnership together.
Yes.
On a new banking project. It's a new banking ecosystem.
It's amazing. Can you mention a little of that?
Can I what?
Can you mention the name of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the company is named Transact Card.
It's amazing. I'm a member.
Yeah, it's one thing about Ninon, one of the reasons she has been successful is she's constantly learning. She's constantly looking for ways to improve and progress and then to give back, right?
Yes.
And this project combines all of those, if I may say so. In about 15 seconds, she said, I get it. I like it. I'm in. Right?
I did, because I understood it. Because I watch the stock market every day. And so I know what business is. I know what the ups and downs are, and this crazy stuff that goes on. But what this card does is it saves you money. It's not a credit card. It's a debit card.
Right.
And you put money into it. You put, I'm going to say 500 or 1,000. You put $1,000 into it. And or you can pay your electricity bill, your house, you can't pay your mortgage yet because mortgage people don't accept it yet, but you can pay all your bills with it. And then you get all these points back, but you get equal points back that then can you either redeem that for money or you can redeem it for goods?
Yeah. So it's interesting because most cards of any kind, a rewards card, a discount card, you might get 1 or 2% mileage, but with the Transact card, you get dollar for dollar value, literally an equivalent, double your buying power. Right? You spend $100, you get 100 points, or what we call Z-Bucks. You spend $5 at Starbucks, get 5 Z-Bucks. Go to Europe and spend a month there and spend $10,000. As long as you put it on this Visa debit card, you're going to get back 10,000 Z-Bucks.
Yeah.
You can use those in our marketplace to achieve savings up to 50% on name brand items. They have flash sales where you can only use your Z-Bucks. But it's just I love it because it's a project that's empowering people.
Well, it's one card. You can have one card. Just put enough money on it. You're going to spend the money anyway. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because this gives people out there a little bit of where my head is at. And my head is, I think, like most people should have their heads right now, is how can we save money and how can we get, all prices have gone up. We notice how the food went up. We know how electricity went up. We know how every single thing in our life, and we all over the world, we actually live the same life. We all have a house mortgage or a rent or electricity bill or a gas bill. We all basically in the whole entire world, doesn't matter what color you are, what religion you are, doesn't matter, I don't care who you are. We all have this same thing. So when I said yes right away, because I could see where I could, personally for me, I could save money. Now I'm going to tell my friends where they can spend this money as well. But what I was bringing out was, this is how I have treated my life all through my life, is how can I help other people? So this card I could. How could I help the children of what I did from when I left home to the time I started my show? The reason I was living in Bel Air in a 7,000 square foot home, I had a Rolls Royce, I had a Mercedes, too. I had a Mercedes, and then I had a dog car. So we had 3 cars for 2 of us. One was for the dogs, one was for me, one was for my husband. But I started from nothing. But I took those gambles and I took those chances. But I was always, the money side of life is very, very important, because you can live without money or with money.
Right.
I would rather live with money, but you've got to know how to earn it. And when you earn it, you've got to know how to keep it and how to spend it. And that is very, very important. I think personally, in all the universities all over the world, should have a money spending and how you take care of money within their teachings.
I couldn't agree more.
And they don't do that. And they don't do it in schools. And I think they should start it in schools. In junior high, they should start it.
I completely agree.
So that they know you can spend so much money, but save at least. That's how I did it. That's how I am where I am today. I've got all these awards. I've got all these lovely, wonderful people out there. I've got you now who wants to go into partnership with me, not because I'm stupid, because I got a brain.
Right.
Because you wouldn't do otherwise. I know you wouldn't.
I think it was Zig Ziglar who said that money isn't the most important thing in life, but it's right up there with oxygen in the gotta have it scale. Now,
You've got to have it, because otherwise you can't do anything.
important. Now, it's we're up against the end of our show here. I wanted to thank you, Ninon, for being with me. There's so many morsels. I encourage you, if you're listening, to go back and listen again. You hear about savings, you hear about determination, you hear about giving back, and all of that makes for a successful life. Thank you for being on Finding Certainty. Thank you for listening in, Ninon. Thanks for being here. I'm really enjoying our relationship, and I look forward to it continuing a lot.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you to our audience. Take care.
Okay, have a great weekend, everybody.
All clear. Great job today, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
You too.
Thank you.
So we're still recording on the YouTube. If there's anything we missed or anything you want to add in, I did want to say this. I didn't get a chance to on the radio portion, but I was able to come to your home, as you know, last week. We did a presentation for some of your colleagues, telling them about the new business that we're rolling out. And it's because it's a way to, in effect, we're taking the power back from the big banks and giving it back to the people.
Yes, we are.
That's a message that really resonates with me. But I have got to say, everybody, you can't see it here on her screen. You see some of her plaques, but she has walls of awards. I mean, how many Telly Awards have you won?
I don't know this. I think it's something like 25.
I mean, it's incredible. And
I got 2 awards from President Bush, and this has nothing to do with politics, but I got 2 awards from President Bush. I got one for KidsTalk Productions, and then I also got one from him personally to me. So I thought that was rather lovely to Ninon. And yeah, I often, even in fact, I started getting to awards from 1996 when I started KidsTalk. That's what the name of the show was at that time, that then turned into Voices of Tomorrow, because the teenagers didn't want to be called kids. So I had to use the name of my show to help to make them happy. And it was just amazing. So with all this going on and everything going on, but until today, I still get awards. And I often think I got, I think 2 or 3 awards this year. I still don't know why. I'm trying to figure it out. How did they find me, and how did they decide to give you? It's just, but thank you everybody out there for recognizing what I'm trying to do. I don't have a jealous bone in my body, by the way. I don't believe
it's well deserved, Ninon. I know you've been recognized a lot, but you've done a lot. You haven't sat on your laurels, hoping things will get better, hoping kids will have mentorship, hoping that, you know, the entertainers in Las Vegas will have a voice. You've gone out and done it. And of everything, I think that is what's taken you to where you are today. You drive a gorgeous Bentley. You have a beautiful home. You've won well over 100 awards throughout your career, and they continue to come in. And it's because you've gone out and done it. You just haven't sat and waited for someone else to fix the problems, right?
Well, because I think that's why I left home at 16, because I knew that nothing was going to happen there, that the only place something was going to happen if I do it. And, you know, I had 5 children. I had three brothers and a sister, and mum and dad. And, you know, I often think back, and I hope children, the younger generation, think of this, that a parent, I'm going to go until 16 because I was at home from baby till 16. But my mother and father, although they didn't give me an education, which I didn't go to school and I didn't have an education, so that I'll put to one side. But my mother and father gave me a bed to sleep in. They gave me breakfast, lunch. We had high tea, not dinner. Every single day for 16 years, my mother gave me breakfast, lunch, and high tea. You've got to look at that. They gave me clothes to wear. They gave me everything I needed. I didn't have them as parents talking to me all the time, unfortunately. That's apart from that, I actually look at the positive side of what I went through, not the negative side. I'm not going to look at what I didn't have. I'm going to look at what But think of what parents do. Children out there, think that you naturally come home and you have dinner and you have lunch and school or wherever you have it, but they make sure you are fed and clothed every single day. I think children and teenagers understand that a little bit more of what parents really do. And also there's that gap. So don't argue with them, try to understand. There is a 20 to 30 to 40-year gap in your lives. Always. Always.
Yeah,
That
and
doesn't go away.
you're always going to have a different perspective and a different understanding from your parents or your children, because you come from different generations, and yet
Right.
it comes back to being proactive instead of passive. It comes back to slowing down maybe a little bit and listening, as you said, just listen. The more we can just stop and listen and try to put ourselves in that other person's shoes and try to appreciate their perspective.
Understand.
We don't understand it quite, right? So much more can happen. I know that as I get older, and I'm in my 50s now, I have 5 grown children. I have a much greater understanding and appreciation for my own parents. And I think we all go through that. But I believe that I've come to that point because I've actively sought it. I've tried to become a better parent. I've tried to learn from them. I've asked questions. I constantly ask my kids for feedback and, and how they're doing and what is there anything I can do to help? And is there anything I could do better as a parent? I've asked them that question, because I just think it comes back to that principle of, and that lesson you mentioned of just listening.
I think that
The
comes,
better we'll do.
yeah, I think that comes from you're not inhibited by life. I think you're open to be able to, which is you have to do, to be able to listen to somebody else, and whether it's a parent or whether it's a child or whether it's a friend. I think, to kind of have patience a little bit more and understanding we are all different, and none of our children are like us. I mean, they might look a little bit like us, they might talk a little bit like us, like my family were antique dealers. Did I ever? Oh, I won't go into antiques. Well, what do I have for the last 12 years? I have an antique booth in Las Vegas because I didn't want to go into it, right? Well, I'm in it. So we're not too far.
I think our parents have a bigger impact on us than we realize. And hopefully we can look for the positives in it. There's difficult upbringings and kids who wish their parents had done things differently. I think every parent wishes their parents had done things, or every child wishes their parents had done things differently, but
they can't, because they're doing it how they are. They can't do it different, and the children can't do it any different because they are who they are. So accept who people are. Don't try to change. You can't change a leopard from his spots.
Well, and hopefully we can appreciate that they did the best they could.
That's all. Do the best you can. Great saying.
Whether it's an entertainer or a kid or a child,
Doesn't matter.
They're doing the best they can at this stage in their life with their baggage, with their upbringing. And if we can just be a little more patient, I think we can get along. We can do amazing things together. So any last bit of advice or any last?
The last bit of advice is I don't always like to push something, but get this card. Believe me, save money. You're going to get equal back.
If you're interested in learning more, we are very excited about this project because it's empowering entrepreneurs and
everybody.
Others. It is probably one of the most phenomenal nonprofit fundraiser models I've seen. I mean, imagine just, for example, a pastor getting up in front of his church and saying, we appreciate your tithes, we appreciate your donations. Here's a way for you to help the church even more. If you will just get this card, Transact card, Visa debit, and if you'll use it for your purchases, a portion of every single time you swipe that card will come back to the church. And so
how cool is that?
Church can receive donations and funding coming in 24/7, even while they sleep. And not only is it steady, but it expands, because most users were finding if they can get 100% back, a dollar for dollar value versus 1% mileage, they're going to use it and they're going to tell their friends about it, who will tell their friends. And this grassroots organic just expansion happens. It's just phenomenal.
And it's not a gimmicky thing. It's just a card. It's a debit card. That's all it is. And actually it's by Visa, if I remember rightly. It's through Visa. So
Right.
it is an honorable card. Everything's fine. And I guarantee if it wasn't, I would have nothing to do with it. I can assure you. So, and I'm not pushing it. I'm just helping people along this rocky road of financial status in the entire world, because it is in the entire world. But it's not just in Las Vegas, it's everywhere.
Well, we need all the help we can get. Prices are going up. Inflation is killing us.
Yep.
A lot of things happening that are fighting against us. We need a hand up. You've given a hand up to many people, Ninon. I'm honored to be working with you in this respect. If you are listening and you'd like to learn more, go to www.certaintyvisa.com to learn more. If you'd like to enroll either as a customer or you'd like to join us in the business, become what we call a digital branch office, go to ninon.mytzt.com and you'll see website there. Again, ninon.mytzt.com.
Thank you. That's
All I have for you today, Ninon. You're fantastic. Thank you for being here, my friend.
And you're never too old to do anything.
Absolutely.
Never too old. Thank you, Patrick.
My good friend David, he's in his 80s, late 80s. And every time I ask him how he's doing, he says, excellent, but improving.
I love it. I love it. You take care.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.